The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Time once again for Dark Side of the Pooch, always brought to you by Sasquatch Toys and Comics. They're down there in Citation Lane, down there in beautiful Hoover. It's they opened up in October, I think, of last year. And of course, it's also owned by Ed, who owns Ed's Pet World. We know him as Seth. And of course, you can still go down there and check it out. All the places for sale. I'm hearing some different news about Ed's Pet World, perhaps, so they may be moving locations. So it may not be going away. They may just be moving from that location. So we'll see. Which would be a good thing. But Sasquatch Toys and Comics, anything in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and more. Check out your favorite toys. What was your favorite toy growing up? What was your go-to toy? The thing that you remember most?
I liked Legos a lot, but my crown jewel of toys probably happened around 1988 or 89, and my parents for Christmas got me the Mega G.I. Joe aircraft carrier that,
Nice.
in my mind was like 10 feet long.
Yeah.
In reality, it was probably like maybe 4 feet long.
Still, though, that thing's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. And it took up a large chunk of my room. And all my friends would come over and we would have a time because I was the only one that had it.
That's awesome.
And I looked him up recently, and I wonder if Seth could come through with one of these things. But those things hold their value. I mean, they are. If there's a toy that's still held in pretty high regard,
You don't have your original.
I don't. I have no clue what happened to it.
It was the G.I. Joe. What was it called?
It's an aircraft carrier.
Aircraft carrier. I'm going to call him and see what something like that's going for. That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny because
it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all remember our first bike. I played Legos a lot. I don't know what that says about Legos because my special needs boy loves Legos a lot too. It's amazing how much we have in common. But I used to just build like architectural structures. Like I used to start at the bottom and build out and go in like this and then meet and then go out and just see how high I could go. And I would do that for hours. I don't know until I ran out of Legos.
That's a kid thing.
And do you remember the first time you got a computerized game? That was.
Yeah. Oh, I do. It was incredible.
I got some Sega football game or something like that, where it was just a line and you just ran in between the other two lines. And that's what the football game was. And I can remember playing with a thing like it was crack.
Oh yeah. So I vividly remember, probably around the same time, 88, 89. When we got a Nintendo, the original NES. So I think that thing came out in 83 or 84, maybe. So we were, 4 or 5 years after.
Was that when you had to tape the thing onto the screen?
No. So the original Nintendo was, you had the console box and then you put the little cassette game in it. And then the controller was wired to the console box. Yep. And then the console box plugged into the auxiliary in the TV. So, nothing was attached to the TV, but it was around that same time that I was gosh, I don't know what this says about me. So when I was that age, Pee Wee Herman had an insanely popular kids show on Saturday mornings.
I remember, yeah.
And he was like, whoever was on in his corner had great marketing, and he had action figures and he had like all kind of stuff. So I had a little chair that I would, 6-year-old me, I had a little chair. I would sit in front of the TV and play Mario, but I also had Cherry from the show, from the Pee Wee's Playhouse show. I had Cherry and I had Pee Wee, and Pee Wee would sit in Cherry next to me as I played Mario.
Isn't that great? Aren't those wonderful times?
I've got people in my front office right now listening to me, and they're laughing because they're learning things about me that they never knew.
So simple. And a week ago this time, my daughter was actually in tears because she couldn't get on TikTok. And I'm like, man, it's so different now. The times are so different. And of course, it came back, but that's kind of crazy. Well, check out if you want to go back and relive those days of all those toys and cards and everything else and comics. Check out Sasquatch Toys and Comics, a proud sponsor, of course, of this wonderful show we call Darkside of the Pooch. A little slow for you here on a Tuesday. Normally, you're booked up. Typical for cold weather, or is just this the way it's kind of fallen for you, or what's going on, man? I mean, what's happening?
The end of January and February are just like really slow times for the veterinary industry. I wouldn't say really slow, like we're never really slow, but when it comes to veterinary stuff. So that's why, like, I don't know how many years ago, the industry decided to have dental month in February, and it's kind of, they use it to kind of bolster, help, with the kind of the slow season. We don't do that. We don't have dental month at my practice. What we found, if you just offer, specials one time a year, what ends up happening is no one will have their pet's teeth cleaned until February.
Yeah.
And you get overrun, and also animals don't have the proper care they should have, because if someone comes in March and the animal needs its teeth cleaned, they're going to say, oh, we'll just wait 11 months to do it in February. Well, in those 11 months, the teeth and the animal's overall health are just getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
So instead, we just decided to do it where if you come in for your wellness visit, within 3 months from that, you get the same, dental special that all the other practices only give in February.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, we're lazy. We like to wait for the deals, and of course, isn't it funny how? Isn't it funny how we'll wait, but isn't also how funny we respond to things like special, like we'll do, like we're cattle. You know what I mean? Like everyone go, hey, point over here. No, March is pet care month for their toes. So come in on March, and we're all like, oh, if it's March, then we'll have it. So it's just amazing how we do that. How we cattle herd into those areas. All right. 208-0301, 208-0301. Always getting your emails, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. We got a ton of those to get into a little bit later on this morning. And of course, you can stop by and see his wonderful store out there. You make it through the cold. Any funky, weird stories of the last couple of weeks that you want to share with us before we jump into some emails? Anything weird stuff going on?
I mean, nothing weird. I can tell you like how much of a bonehead I am.
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear about that.
So when it snowed that, it was a Tuesday night or Wednesday morning or something a few weeks ago. And I was the only one that can make it into work.
Of course.
Well, of course, maybe other people can, but they don't.
Yeah.
But I put it in 4-wheel drive low and got it to work. And our doors here are really funny. You can walk out of them outside when they're locked, and they won't unlock. Okay. So I was in here taking care of we had like 6 or 8 boarders. And we had one dog that needed some special care, and he had to be hand walked. You couldn't just turn him out in the yard and let him go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. So I had him on a leash, and I was, went out, walked him around. Well, it's been a while, fortunately, since, I've had to come in when no one is here and do this. And I forgot that you can walk out of the doors when they're still locked. So I locked myself out.
Oh.
And I mean, it's like, that saying, like in space, no one can hear you scream.
Yeah.
Well, in Alabama, in 2 inches of snow, no one is coming to save you. Because my keys are inside. So I can't get in my truck. I can't get back in the building. My wife can't come save me because, she has a minivan and 3 kids. I'm not going to ask her to get out.
Yeah.
So I just start making phone calls. None of my employees can make it to work that have a key. Everyone that has a key can't make it. So I'm just sitting outside with this dog for 3 hours. And I go to, I go to the fire station. There's a fire station right next door. I'm thinking maybe they can pick a lock. They can't do that. I have a friend who owns a locksmith company. And so I call him and I'm like, Sam, can you come out? And he's like, no, I can't come out. I can't make it out. And so anyway, I just sit it out, wait it out, and finally I have an employee that has a key and she can make it into work. She lets me in.
Wow.
So that's my snow story.
Isn't it funny? Because when you're sitting there in that particular situation, you're thinking to yourself, why in the world have I not hidden something somewhere on the outside of this building? But you just don't think to do it. There was one night where I was coming home from a gig And the garage, the door that goes into the garage, the door that goes between the two garages was unlocked. But the door that goes into the house from the garage was locked, and I didn't have a key, and so I got into the garage, but I couldn't get into my own house. It was the most bizarre thing because I'm right there, and I mean, I'm in the house, I'm in the garage, right? I'm in the garage, but I can't get in the house, and I mean, I just went, and so I kept thinking, there's got to be something, there's got to be a way for me because I'm in the garage. If I'm in the garage, there's got to be a way I can get in the house, and I could not get in the house, and so eventually I just had to go to the door. I went to the, and of course, my wife was sleeping, my kids were sleeping, and so I just started ringing the doorbell. And boy, that was not a happy person showing up at the door at 2 o'clock in the morning.
No, but I've figured out a way now. I've made it so that will not happen again.
There you go.
So
it's on the big rock on the right-hand side of the door. It looks like a real rock, but it's not a real rock.
Not quite that sophisticated, unfortunately.
2080301, 2080301. Brought to you by Sasquatch Toys and Comics. We got lots of emails to get into. Betsy in Birmingham has got a dog with ears. Most dogs do have ears, but this dog continues to scratch his ears. It looks like when and my dog did the same thing where they'll scratch and it looks like they're digging in so deep. It looks like it feels so good because there's like me, but then they start to yelp a little bit. They start to cry a little bit. What's going on there?
That'd be an ear infection, most likely.
Yeah.
Either a fungal or bacterial or both. Sometimes it's more of a sometimes they won't have an infection, but that's really rare. Sometimes they can just have what's called allergic otitis, and that's just an itchy ear that's not infected.
Mhm.
But I mean, probably greater than 90% of the time, if they're scratching their ears a lot and shaking their head a lot, they've got an ear infection. It's similar to a swimmer's ear in people.
Yep.
It's not like an inner ear infection where like the kids get and they get a fever and they get really sick and snotty and lethargic. It's more like swimmer's ear. But it needs to be treated. It's not going to go away on its own. And it's treated with topical medication that you put down in the ear.
All right. Stan wants to know what's the highest you've ever seen a cat in a tree that couldn't get down? That's a good question. That does happen, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some pretty tall magnolia trees, and I've seen some cats in those. When in Selma, where my grandparents live, their neighborhood had some really tall magnolia trees, and neighbors had cats that could navigate them. Because I mean, the canopy's so big. I mean, they were almost like little monkeys in there.
Yeah. So, but are there some cats that can't get down?
Sure.
And so, why? I mean, I understand why a child. I've been in a situation where I've climbed a tree and just kept going, and then looked down, and was like, oh, and then you just kind of freeze up. You're like, oh no, I'm not getting down. So why do cats do that?
Well, they can, because it's easy to get up because of the way that their paws and claws are shaped. And so climbing up is easy. And they're not, at least young cats, they don't think about the next step. They just think that there's something up there that they want to get, or they're curious and they want to see what's up there. But when you turn to come down, the way that, and I mean, this doesn't just apply to them, it applies to us and dogs too, but coming down, the way that their claws are shaped and their paws are shaped, that doesn't really lend itself to coming straight down.
Yeah.
It's easy to climb and hook things and pull yourself up, but they're not made to come down like that. They would almost have to come down backwards, which, I mean, probably cats are super smart, but that probably exceeds even, their mental capacity as far as animals go.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like when they're up in that tree, say a human climbs a tree, well, they know they have to come down the same way they went up with, their feet first. A human, I mean, in their right mind would never point their head straight down and try to climb down a tree.
That'd be cool.
Because
That's
they
like
know,
sloth. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, because they know better. But
Yeah.
see, cats don't, they're not that smart. They're smart, but they're not that smart.
Yeah.
So instead of coming down feet first, they just stay up there because they know they can't come down head first, or they're going to just plummet to their death.
Yeah. Wes in Gardendale wants to know why do some big dogs do well with small animals and why some big dogs don't do well with small animals. I'm assuming they're talking about like gerbils and guinea pigs and hamsters. I know I remember I had, I guess it was my guinea pig, Freddie. Which one was it? No, Freddie was a dog. Anyway, I had something, lost the guinea pig in the house, could not find it. I thought it actually went down into the grate, into the air conditioner grate, and we looked for like 2 hours, and I was like, okay, and I knew that it was going to come out in the middle of the night, and I knew who was going to get it, and I remember at 3:30 in the morning heard this god awful screech and was like, there he is. He just got out, and I knew Rainer Dog, got him because Rainer Dog will chase anything. Why are that? Why some big dogs like to chase things like that? Some dogs will sit across the floor and watch a guinea pig walk across the floor and not even touch it. Why is that?
Well, I think that like with anything else, a very small amount of fear can be very helpful for everyone in the situation. So like if a dog is not like overly fearful, like I'm not talking like an unhealthy fear,
Yeah,
but if they have just a little bit of uneasiness about something, they're probably going to leave it alone. But it's those dogs that are either really fearful, because if a dog's really fearful, they're probably going to be aggressive
yeah,
because they don't want to be hurt or attacked. So dogs that are a little bit fearful are probably going to leave those things alone. Dogs that are incredibly fearful are probably going to attack it out of self-preservation. And dogs that are curious are probably going to play with it to death.
hmm,
Not meaning to hurt it. They're not afraid, but they're just curious as to what it is. And so they go over there and kind of swat it, bat at it a couple times. And if it's, a hamster or gerbil or something really small, it's, take a Great Dane to knock it unconscious and then you're done.
yeah, yeah. That's it. All right, info at TonyCurryRadio.net. We have a first one here. I actually read it this morning. I thought this was funny because you get to get in the relationship business.
Yeah.
Steve just started dating a woman back in late November. He said she's rock hard, just wonderful, great gal, but she's got a dog that seems to take up every moment of every day. And he's like, I feel like I'm competing against this dog. And he said, God forbid I walk in the house. And the first thing she does is, I mean, if the dog walked in with him, she would go straight for the dog first. And she would act like he doesn't even exist. That's how important the dog is. And he goes, I get that the dog has been important to her, and I get that it's very important to her in her life. But I'm starting to feel like second fiddle. What do you think I should do?
Well, I, first we need to see the picture of the girlfriend
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we can assess this
Uh-huh.
properly.
Yes, exactly.
I'm just kidding. Well, I think that um, with a little bit of kind of tread off the tires, speaking of myself here, I have come to the understanding that I am now second fiddle to my kids,
Hmm.
and I know that my wife is always going to put them first. And I know that she's going to be more excited to see them than she is to see me most of the time these days. And so I've just had to kind of adapt.
Does it hurt your
And
feelings? Seriously.
it doesn't hurt my feelings
You
on
know how
like a
much
day.
you know how much she loves you, but you
Well,
also
sure, of
understand
course,
that
of course.
unconditional love between a child and a mother, and you know how much she appreciates. She's doing it because she knows the kids appreciate more than you do.
Yeah, well, that's her job,
Yeah,
and it's our job to raise our kids, so that they know that we love them. But on a day-to-day basis, no, I've just come to expect it, and they need that. They need that from her.
yeah.
I don't necessarily need that from her, but the point I'm trying to make is that with time, um, animals have become like kids to people.
Hmm.
And whether that is rational or irrational or healthy or unhealthy, that's not for me to decide. I just benefit from it because of what I do for a living. But I would say that um, if it's not putting a damper on the relationship too much, I would probably just tell him to roll with it and in some ways support it. And if he's understanding of it, it will probably get him further in the long run. Because if she feels like he's into the dog, and if he's even like putting the dog up on a pedestal like she is, it might get him up on the pedestal, or
I
it
think
might
you
get her on his pedestal.
See, you're a Bible reader, and you're doing this so right. You're taking high road, and I love that about you because it is so true. A lot of guys are like, "I'm not competing with that." Blah 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 blah. Well, then guess what? You're going to be going home alone. You got to play the game just a little bit. First of all, she's known this pet a lot longer. She's known you. She trusts this pet a lot longer and more than she trusts you. She does because she's been around it. She knows what to expect from it. She knows this thing's going to be there for her. It's always there by the front door. Always ask how her day is by giving her a big lick and a kiss in the face. So I'm totally cool with that. Now, I will say this: there's some boundaries where if we're being intimate, and the dog's in the room, and I just can't feel like I can do my thing, but that maybe come along with time. Maybe that's 3 or 4 months down the road, and it's like, hey, listen, would you mind? But then you don't want to put the situation in where you know how much she loves that pet, and you're asking her to do it. Now, I've been with women with like, and that seems to be like a going thing. Like you'll be like, really trying to make a connection there, and the cat that will not leave you alone. Every guy's been there. It's like you're like, get off. You're trying to, you're trying to concentrate. You're like, so, but yeah, I think maybe she may be doing this, Steve. She may be doing this to test you. It may be one of the situations where she wants to know, how much she'll put up with. Because if you'll put up with a woman who really loves my cat, then she's really going to love you. And maybe she just has not had the right guy come along that has been good enough to lure that love away from that animal. So there you have it.
What was that movie? Was that How to Lose a Guy in whatever days or dates?
Yeah.
10 days.
10
I'm
days.
hearing from the peanut gallery here. Yeah. So yeah, it could be a situation like that, where she's, testing him.
It's kind of crazy. All right, info TonyCurryRadio.net. The phone number 208-0301, RossBridgeVet.com, RossBridgeVet.com. You're also on social media. I did a show with Kip Kiefer, who's a good friend of mine. You know Kip. He does a lot of shows with me here on Tony Curry Radio, and he's a big music guy, much like yourself. And I wanted to share this day in rock history with you because I don't think there's ever been this many things. We were talking about, the Big Bopper, and of course the day the music died, and we know what that's all about. But we're doing this show here on January 28th. And so January 27th, this day in rock history, I wanted to tell you some of the things that happened just on January 27th in rock history. You ready for some of these?
I'm ready.
Elvis Presley smash single Heartbreak Hotel, which by the way was his first number one song, his first gold record. Was released by RCA Records. The funny thing is about that was it was the first record released by RCA Records, who bought the rights from Elvis Presley from Sun Records for $30,000. So RCA comes in and goes, you know what? We'll make a deal for this Elvis Presley guy. He hadn't had a hit yet. We'd like to give you $30,000 for his record. What do you think? And the next thing you know, and he sold 300,000 copies of that record in the first week, which I thought was kind of crazy. This is just on January 27th, 1956. 1958, Little Richard left rock and roll and enrolled in Bible school at Oakwood College in beautiful Huntsville, Alabama. He explained that while flying over the Philippines on a tour, the wing of his plane caught fire, and his prayers, the flames go out, were answered. He said, if you put the flames out, I will get out of rock and roll forever. God answered, so he decided to dedicate the rest of his life to God. Some of the members of his touring band found work with James Brown's famous Flames. During his 4 years in school, he released several material like Good Golly Miss Molly, some things that he had wrote in freehand. But by the time he got out in 1962, 4 years later, the British invasion had happened and his music was gone. It was like he missed his window of great classic rock, his type of music during that late. And he got out and he could not write a hit song. He actually wrote a song with Jimi Hendrix called I Don't Know What You've Got, But It's Got Me. And just absolutely flopped in 1965. He could not write a song. I thought that was kind of crazy. Elvis Presley received his 29th gold record on this date in 1962, and I only bring that up because I did mention 1956, they gave up the record contract. He's got 29 gold records between 1956 and 1962. Someone lost their job for that. Not a good thing. In 1967, GM offers the 8-track player in the dash of the car. The first major Buick line. They've been available in Ford for quite some time, for a couple months, although they were very popular for a while. The tapes would be phased out of retail stores by late 1982, which lasted 15 years. But that was the first car you could actually put a 8-track tape in the car. Can you imagine?
No. And you know, the crazy thing, well, first of all, let me go back to that Little Richard for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, the Beatles, like John Lennon says that Elvis was probably his biggest inspiration, but Little Richard is right there with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, Little Richard may have flamed out quickly, but it was almost like he almost like gave birth to the Beatles in a way, and so they kind of usurped him. But
Don't you
I
wonder
love,
what? Don't you wonder? Don't you wonder? I know you do this. Don't you wonder what God was thinking there?
yeah,
Obviously, he was in 1956, 57. Little Richard was huge. I mean, as
yeah,
big as Elvis Presley would have ever been. And all of a sudden, his plane catches on fire. He's making a deal with Jesus. By the way, God doesn't make deals. Don't ever make that deal. God does. God doesn't work that way. Okay, He's already got His plan for you. So don't sit there and say, "I'll become a priest if this plane lands." If you want to become a priest or you're looking for a reason to go that direction, then just do it. Anyway, but he made that deal, and then only 4 years later, he goes to Bible college up in Huntsville, Alabama. And 4 years later, it's like he came out, and all of a sudden, the world has changed, and no one likes his music anymore. It's just crazy.
yep,
God is always finding those windows of opportunity for us, but you have to be listening, so we don't miss those. In this particular case, he actually made a deal with God, and who knows? Maybe Little Richard would have gotten killed in a car crash. Maybe he would have had a drug overdose in those 4 years. I don't know. But we'll probably never know the answer to that
yeah.
story. It's pretty crazy.
You'll never know. But also the 8-track thing. I love these old like car auction shows. I love to watch them. I don't know. I mean, some people probably think they're mind numbing, but every now and then you'll see one of these
You seen the
cars that
BT
are.
Barrett? Are you watching the BT Barrett thing? It's been on the History Channel for like the last 4 days straight.
So I watch Meekum. I
Yeah,
don't watch the Barrett because I don't have that channel on YouTube TV. But Meekum comes on Motor Trend, and
yeah.
Meekum just finished up their Kissing Me, their big kind of winter show. So I watch that one. But when the car comes across the block and it's got the original 8-track player in it, it's just so wild.
It
But you
is
know,
so cool.
cassette players probably lasted about as long as 8-track. 15 years, and then maybe even less, and then
Yep.
we're on to CDs.
Yeah. And for you people who forgot, man, the song would change. The track would change in the middle of the song. Like if you had like a Pink Floyd 8-track, and then you had like a 7 or 8 minute song, the song would actually stop. You'd have different tracks. That's why it was called an 8-track. And you'd have to sit there and the song would end. You have to go there and tap it so you could listen to the rest of the song. Can you imagine thinking about how just, like how we love convenience now and we could not possibly put up with it, having us sit through a song and it stop in the middle of the song. We have to get up and change it over so we can listen to the rest of it. I can't believe it. On this date, 1968, after collecting their $50,000 fee, they headed back immediately to England. The Bee Gees played their first American concert in the United
Incredibly
States.
underrated band.
Oh
Incredibly
man,
underrated band, and the fact that they have to like bear the disco, they are the disco. They get everyone's vile, they get everyone's hatred of disco, and they were such a great band, and just like how funky they were, and just kind of just groundbreaking in some ways. Just what a great band.
dude, they wrote so many great songs for other bands. I
Absolutely.
mean, I was listening to Heartbreaker from Dionne Warwick, which was the title track to her 1984 album, and it was you can hear the Bee Gees in it. But they wrote songs for people they knew they were going to be huge hits. They just was
Hmm.
like it was almost like a gift, like you open a Christmas gift and it's like, oh, it's a Bee Gees song, great, thank you very much. I mean, they used to write just so many different songs, Hall and Oates, you name it, they did it. 1970, John Lennon writes, records, and mixes "Instant Karma." You like that song?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I think that's okay. I was probably more of a fan of Paul McCartney's solo stuff,
Yeah, I
to
was
be
too.
honest.
Instant Karma took him 9 hours to do it. Phil Spector produced it. George Harrison was on guitar. Billy Preston on piano. A lot of people would say that was probably one of his biggest songs of all time. 1984, Michael Jackson suffered scalp and neck burns while his hair caught on fire during an accidental explosion on the set of a Pepsi commercial shot in L.A. Do you remember that?
So I don't remember it happening, but I was I'm old enough to know, like, years later, people were still talking about it. So when it happened, I was too young.
Pepsi would pay him $1.5 million as part of a settlement. And then he donated all the money to the Brotman Memorial Hospital where he was treated. 1991, Whitney Houston sang the Star Spangled Banner in Tampa Stadium before Super Bowl 25, along with the Florida Orchestra. The performance was watched by 73,813 fans, 115 million TV viewers, and 750 million, should I say, worldwide, and is known now as the greatest rendition of the Star Spangled Banner ever sang. How about that?
Hey, what about greatest halftime show? What's your favorite halftime show ever?
I thought Bruno Mars did a fantastic job. I remember watching him. I wasn't a big Bruno Mars fan, but I remember the choreograph and the music that I was into at the time. I understood it. There was no cussing. It was clean. It was fun. I just remember thinking to myself, if Bruno Mars wants to do the halftime show every year, I'm okay with it. Because I thought they could have just brought, because remember they brought guests in. They kind of brought different of his friends in as he played with them. I thought that was fantastic. Obviously, we all remember the Janet Jackson thing. I remember the Who being probably the worst I'd ever seen. It was terrible. I remember the lights. I remember the lights were so incredibly bright, but you could tell they were trying to off tail. They were trying to go, listen, the music's not going to be great, so we got to flash something here. So they just the lighting was unbelievable.
Is that what Janet Jackson did as well? Yeah, the music's not great. We got to flash something.
It could have been, but I mean, I don't even know is it Kendrick Lamar doing it this year? I used to look forward to hearing who it was going to be. Bruce Springsteen, I thought was fantastic. Tom Petty was really good. Remember the Who was not so much that good. The Rolling Stones were good, but it used to be, man, when you were, because you don't get paid to do this, you just make the album sales. But when you show up at a halftime, you're going to pop back up to number one for a few weeks. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. For me, it's Prince, hands down.
Yeah. There has been some great acts, man. But it just, I mean, I thought Katy Perry, I thought was really, really good. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think back. I just think she's so smoking hot. I'm trying to think back some of the earlier days, some of the earlier things, because it was so early. But it's always been good. But it just got to the point where it just got, if it can get possibly too big, it got too big.
Yeah.
So, all right, tell people how they can find you, man, on this date in 2025.
Yeah. You can call us at 208-0301. You can also request an appointment online at our website, rossbridgevet.com, or you can find us on Facebook.
And it's brought to you by Sasquatch Toys and Comics down there in Citation Lane. Check out Sasquatch Toys and Comics for any of your comic needs, 60s, 70s, 80s. They got comics. They got stuff still in the box. Buy, sell, or trade. You find some stuff in the attic. That's where he gets a lot of his stuff. People go, yeah, I found an old box of toys from my grandpa back from 1930s, and he'll be salivating. Of course, he also has Ed's Pet World down there. It's still open in beautiful Homewood. Check it out. Thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you next week.
See you, buddy.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.